Welcome to the Dental Decoders podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Rogars, and I'm here to help you crack the code on all things dental operations. Each week, we dive into topics to help you overcome roadblocks, streamline operations, and reduce team burnout. Whether you're an owner, a practice manager, or a team member, this podcast is for you. Join us for insightful discussions, engaging interviews, and practical tips. So sit back and relax as we crack the code on all things dental operations together. Hello, Decoders. I am so excited for you to be joining us for this week's episode of the Dental Decoders podcast. I do say this every week, but I am genuinely excited to be hanging out with you every week. So thank you so much for tuning in. This week's episode, we have Zeke Domowski, who is a dental marketing wizard. I can't wait for you to check out this conversation. We talk about how to maximize your marketing budget, how impactful marketing can be on your practice if it's done correctly, where to focus your attention when it comes to marketing, and so much more. This episode is packed full of ways that you can increase the effectiveness of the marketing inside your practice and make sure that it's being targeted appropriately. So definitely something you're going to want to check out, especially if new patient retention is a goal for you and new patient acquisition. So super great episode to check out. A little bit about Zeke for those of you who may not be fortunate enough to know who he is yet. Zeke has been in the digital marketing space for like 10 years. His background is helping businesses with small or even large budgets grow to their full potential. One of the things that we talked about today is how to take a small budget and make a large impact and where to really target that too. So this is going to be great for offices who maybe are struggling to come up with a marketing budget right now. He has a technical background, so he is an engineer, which means he absolutely loves numbers, which you will hear in this episode. He loves to figure out how to maximize a client marketing budget for them and get them optimal results that allow them to scale over time. When it comes to consulting, Zeke is very tactical and provides step-by-step marketing solutions that are custom for your specific dental production and the numbers and goals that you have in mind. So all in all, this episode is fantastic. Feel free to check him out. We'll put his links in the show notes so you can visit his page as well. And anyone who mentions this podcast will get $100 off of your first month of marketing with Zeke. So that is an awesome opportunity you don't want to miss out on. Without further ado, I'll let you tune into this week's episode.
Hello and welcome to our Dental Decoders podcast today. We are excited to have Zeke Domowski with us today from Creatively Innovative. And on our podcast, we are going to be decoding marketing budgets. So Zeke, thanks for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me on.
I am just actually kind of having a face to the name and getting to meet you now. So for anybody who's kind of in the same shoes as me, you want to just give us a rough crash course on who is Zeke and what it is that you do.
Okay, so my name is Zeke Domowski. I live in Spearfish, South Dakota, which is the western part, which is the Black Hills. And I do marketing for dental practices. So we help dental practices show up on Google when someone's searching for dentist near me, any type of those dentist terms or specific treatments as well. And we use Google ads, SEO, and even local service ads to get you to the top as soon as someone searches so that they can call you.
That is such a helpful tool. And the SEO and getting your name up on that list is a totally different language for me. So having someone who knows that stuff is super valuable because I feel way out of my depths every time I try and learn anything about the Google marketing side.
I think a lot of office managers in particularly feel that way because I think they hear the language, and I think that when they are attending conferences or speakers or listening to something on marketing, they hear the importance of the SEO and the ads that you have on Google, and that's what's bringing people to your practice. So it's important to track all these things. But how do they know that they need marketing? And then how do they have that conversation with their doctor to help see how the two of them can work together to support that type of marketing for their practice?
The first thing to know is, one, is look at your schedule. How booked out is that schedule? Because I actually just cold emailed over 1,000 dentists to basically survey them and find out how many people actually have an open schedule. And most of them do. Like they'll say, hey, yeah, we've got availability in 2 days or a week out. We actually had 3 people say next year, May 2025, February 2025. Yes, we had 3 people that point out a year later, which in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's crazy because how do your current patients even get in? But the ones that were in a shorter time period were like, oh, great. I'm so glad you have availability. That means you can take on new patients. So then when we ask them, are you looking to add in marketing? Oh, no, thanks. Did you talk to your doctor? Because that doctor probably wants to make a little bit more revenue. And he probably hadn't thought about it before. And they aren't doing marketing. And so when you look at your schedule, this is what one of my doctors showed me. He's like, there's 2 schedules. We've got the cleanings and exams. And then he's like, I've got my treatments. And he's showing me how each operatory has each one. And he's like, I am completely booked with emergency treatments right now for the rest of the week. And so what happens is these front office managers don't realize that the schedule's open. And if you think about it, if you have, let's just say 1 cleaning per day, which could turn into a treatment as well. Some of those could have treatments, or the emergency ones, or so the actual operatories for ones, you could be potentially missing out on anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 a month at a minimum that a doctor could be missing out on if you have an open schedule. And so in the course of a year, you're looking at $250,000 to $600,000 increased revenue. And if these doctors are taking home, let's just go with 40% on that, you're looking at, well, let's just go half on that. So it's anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000, which in turn means bonuses for office staff, higher pay. And so a lot of times the front office staff, they're like, oh, I'm busy. Or as my wife said, they don't want more work. They're already doing enough, so they don't see it. So they look past it. But the doctor should look at his actual schedule. Is his schedule full with treatments? Are his hygienists full? If they're not full, look at how many open slots there are. And honestly, look back a month. What happened in April of this month? Did I have 25 spots? Oh, if I would have done marketing, I could have filled in those 25 spots. So that's how I would do it. I would look at your schedule, maybe not so much in the future, maybe look back over 3 months, because 1 month isn't going to tell you a lot. But look at your schedule, see how much was open. Don't look just at the hygienist, but also look at the treatments, because honestly, a third of people calling in are going to be emergency treatments.
That's really smart. I like the idea of looking backwards in your schedule too, because your schedule could be really strong for the next maybe 3 months, but then after that, how are we going to maintain that, and how are we going to keep that rolling too? So I like the idea of looking backwards.
One thing to think about is you got a full schedule, then people cancel. And so if they're canceling, then what happens? You know, if you had marketing going on, you could have had more emergency appointments. I actually just listened to, I think I went through about 20 some phone calls with one of our practices, and you'd be surprised how many people called that wanted same day or next day appointments. She's like, I got Thursday open. And they're like, no, I'm in pain. Like this Monday. And she's like, oh, we've been booking, because she's booking from the last couple of days. She's booking up her calendar, and they're paid bonuses on keeping a schedule completely full. And so if someone cancels, they're paid to call someone. And that's why sometimes there's a disconnect, I think, from how full that doctor is to what the front office thinks. And honestly, it comes down to the doctor that makes the decision for marketing, not the front office. Front office just needs to answer the phone calls.
So I've heard a lot of people talk about this in different like coaching and such that I do with practices. How do you know how much to spend on your marketing so that you still get the return on the investment that you're spending to bring new patients into your practice, or whatever type of marketing you're wanting to do? Maybe the doctor started doing implants or, whatever, and that's kind of a new area for his practice. How can they determine what the amount is for them to spend in marketing?
It really can depend on what treatments you're doing as well. But if you're looking at just general practice, search terms, or even honestly, just in general for marketing, we've seen where people say at a starting point, 3% of their revenue in a rural market and then 5% in a larger market. But there's always a caveat to this one here, because if you're at 100K and you spend 3K, do you want to stay at 100K or do you want to get to 150K? And I have this talk with a lot of business owners, because I have a lot of friends that are like, hey, just help me out with my marketing, and they ask me questions. And I'm like, well, do you want to spend what you're going to get. Like, for example, if you're trying to add $50,000 in revenue to your practice, are you going to be spending the 3% on your production that you're currently doing, or the production plus the 50K? And so in my mind, it's you spend it on the full amount. So for instance, if you're trying to go from 100 to 150, you're going to spend 3% of the 150. And so then that's where it comes back out to 5%. I had one guy tell me that he was willing to spend 10% on marketing. And it really just depends. Wow. I think it's treatments is where he was at with it, where they see it. But the one dental practice I talked with that he was talking about, so in the last year, he went from 750,000 to 1.5 million doing Google ads and SEO with us. And the thing is he was somewhere along the lines of around the 5% mark per month is what he was spending to do that. Anybody spending the 5% on, actually, no, he was on the 5% on 100K. Yeah. So he would have only been 3%. And that's a rural market, for example. And so it really can depend, but it's one of those where it's like, how much is your cost to acquire that customer? So for instance, if you're spending $5,000 and you're getting 50 new patients, well, then you're at $100. But if you're only getting 25, you're at $200. Well, if you need more, you can kind of start doing some math on it where you're like, okay, I need to spend a little bit more on ads or a little bit more on SEO. It's really hard to dial in an exact number where it's like, if you spend this, you will get that, because each market will be different. You're going to have different offers, different conversion rates, and front office staff, once again, are they answering the phone? Are they converting it? And are the treatments being converted too by the dentist as well? So start off with 3 to 5%. That's just a good benchmark. And then if you need more, spend more. If you need less, you might want to move. If you need less new patients, you actually may want to just move where you spend your marketing dollars. Move it from Google Ads to SEO, or move it from SEO to Google Ads, depending on how fast you're trying to get new patients.
So that is actually a super nice segue that I wanted to ask you, because this term of like marketing for your dental practice, like it encompasses so much stuff. Are we sending postcards? Are we posting on social media? Are we running Facebook ads? Are we running Google ads? What is SEO? It gets a little overwhelming. So I wanted to ask you specifically, when you get that marketing budget and you have it ready to go, how do you know where to plug that and where it's going to be the most impactful way for you to invest your marketing dollars so that actually converts into new patients? Or does it not matter?
Yeah. Some people, I saw this asked in a Facebook group, and it's very interesting, the difference between marketers. I am very much a high performance marketer, meaning I only want to do tactics that get results. I don't like doing tactics that don't get results. Like if someone came to me and says, hey, should I do this or that? I'm going to use postcards, for example. Should I do postcards? And I would say, hold on, let's stop. Where are you doing marketing first? So first off is Google Ads is going to have the highest return on investment. Wait, I shouldn't say highest return, fastest return on investment. You spend the money, you're getting phone calls right away. SEO is going to take longer. You're going to try to rank in maps and getting your website to rank in the search results below that. If you're a new practice and your website's brand new, I would honestly spend money on Google Ads almost for up to 6 months, somewhere to the point where you're adding in another $50,000 a month in production just from the Google Ads, and basically max out your Google Ads. So what I mean by that is if you have a budget of $2,000 in the beginning, and then you're growing, and then you can go to 3K, you're growing until your area gets maxed out. That means you have a budget, but you can't spend it anymore. So for example, if you're in a rural market, and we had a client like this where he was at around $1,100 or $1,200. He's like, why can't I spend $2,000? And I was like, you don't have enough search volume. But one of my team members was like, let me try something, Zeke. And we had never tried this before. And she set up this one program that we have that it was algorithm based, completely algorithm based. It's not based upon keywords. It's not based upon anything else. He actually added twice as many phone calls for only $600, not $1,100. And I double checked those calls before this podcast to double check they were legit. There was actually more new patient calls from that algorithm campaign than the search campaign. And so sometimes it just takes a little bit more working of marketing and thinking outside the box, this was completely outside the box. We have never done it before, where we had not used keywords and instead used algorithms where we literally are just looking at who the user is, and if they match another person, show the ad to them, which is not normal marketing for Google. It's outside my wheelhouse most of the time. And so if you're in a larger city though, and you have volume, and you could spend $3,000 or $4,000, I would just say keep moving that budget up until you're maxing it out. And then once you've established the production level that you can then spend more on marketing, because now you have another $50,000 in revenue coming in, then put it into SEO. And that's where it's going to then take some time to rank your website. So Google Ads is first. I don't care honestly what industry you're in. It's honestly Google Ads, unless you're in an industry that's outside dentistry where it's like cold marketing. People don't know you exist. Dentistry exists. Everybody needs it. Everybody knows it exists. And someone even tried using the term, well, everyone's just going to go in network. Everyone's just going to go with whoever they're going to call up their insurance. I'm like, do you really think that someone's going to go, I'm going to go to Delta Dental's website and look at my locations? Yeah, like 1% of people. No, they're going to Google it and then go, do you take Delta Dental? Mm-hmm. And who shows up at the top? It's Google Ads. Then it's Maps. And then it's the search results. So spend it with Google Ads first, and then SEO, and then go into your cold marketing. Cold marketing is social media, postcards, flyers, little league events, sponsoring, things like that. Like, you got to work your way down the list on which ones become more brand awareness. But honestly, max out your top levers first before you go down. And honestly, it's even interesting where people are like, oh, SEO is cheaper than Google Ads. Could be, but how many of those are referrals? How many of those are people that are just coming to your website because they already know about your website? And so if someone says, hey, I think someone said this the other day in a different podcast, I get 125 calls a month from my website. I was like, that's kind of low for a big market. And so I was like thinking through it. And I was like, well, how many of those are referrals? How many of those, they already know his brand? And so depending on what he's paying for his SEO, I would then question, what was his year-over-year growth? So if he had, let's just say 100 phone calls one year, was the next year 130? Was the next year 150? What was that growth? And that difference in growth in number of calls divided by the management fee for his SEO would give you a general idea. And someone ran some numbers on it. It's similar to ads. So that's why I suggest you should just do both, because it's very similar in the cost between the two.
So I kind of want to veer off just a little bit here, because you do have, I think, more and more dentists that are trying to get out from underneath the PPO field and go more into being fee for service.
Yes.
So if you were talking with two different dental practices and you're marketing for them, and one was more PPO focused and one was more wanting to stay more on the fee for service side, do you market that differently to draw in patients that may or may not have insurance? How would you recommend to doctors that are trying to get out of the PPO network? How would you market for them differently?
So the difference is the people that are in network. I actually just did a YouTube video on this where people will post, here are all the insurances that I take, and they'll list it out as if it's like a badge of honor because that's what they take. So if they're not on there, you're actually excluding the people that are out of network, which potentially. So the way you want to market it is you just say, we accept commercial insurance. Just leave it generic. And then if you don't accept Medicaid, say no Medicaid on there. So say you accept the commercial insurance, then when they call up, you're then going to explain to them that dental insurance is not the same as medical insurance. It's more like a coupon. It's not like I know I've been seeing this everywhere in the way I put it out.
This is my love language.
Yeah. You have to explain it because people don't understand. And medical billing is so messed up. Like right now, where people just don't, like, I paid for a service a month ago, and yesterday they told me I had a balance. So I called them up and I was like, you split it across two CPT numbers. And I'm like, what happened to my out of network uninsured discount? She goes, oh, that fell off. I need to talk to that. And I'm like, I almost was about to like yell at them. Like that. I was like, why do I owe $300 more? I already paid for it. But then I realized someone messed up my billing and someone took off my discount. And I was like, once you take off that discount, I was like, it'll come back about the same. And she's like, I'll send that back over. And I was like, ready to yell at her, but I was like, I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna respond. And that's the thing is like when you pick up the phone, it's so easy for someone to just go, hey, do you take Delta insurance? And you might be like, you know what? We don't, or we do, or it gets complicated. Instead, just explain it to them. And I'm not the best on it. I know you ladies are a lot better at explaining how to do this. But the thing is that when you go into market, just say you accept commercial. and honestly say you accept new patients. So when you're talking ads and website, making sure you just say you accept new patients, we accept commercial, and then it comes down to the front office. Do you do it any differently? No. In all honesty, if you are someone that takes 4 people in network and not, why do you want to limit yourself? If someone wants to talk to you, one of the phone calls that I recently listened to, the lady goes, my coworker told me to call you guys up because you guys do those teeth straightening things. That's what she said. And I was like, you know what? That's a referral. She wanted to use them. And mark that call as it was a qualified call. Didn't listen to any more of it. I was like, I'm good to go. It was a qualified call. It was a 20-minute long call. And I was like, I'm not listening to this, but it was qualified. It was very qualified because that was a referral. So that had nothing to do with my organic or my ads. Yes, they may have come in from an ad, but it's one of those that, hey, we showed up. She was looking for a new dentist. And that's the thing is if you don't show up and they can't find who you are when that friend refers you, that's a problem. And then people are like, for example, where someone's like, hey, are you so-and-so dentistry? Well, no, we're not. But maybe you should be a little bit clueless and go, no, it's not us, but we're so-and-so dental. What were you looking for when you were looking for that person? Because I just heard a call where the person was just saying, I'm just looking for a dentist. They were looking up a name, and then she goes, I'm just looking for a dentist. But the final straw was, do you take Medicaid? And then that's where there's a little bit of education, a little bit of lack of education there. I think it could have gone a lot better, where basically the lady was like, I don't know many people that take it. Medicaid around here. Here's where you could go to do it, to find it. It was a whole other city, an hour away from us. And the thing is maybe it could have been explained a little bit better on like, hey, if you can't find someone, we'd be glad to try to help you out, see what we can do. We have payment plans, we have options, things like that. And it may not be a great thing, but certain states, when they open up Medicaid to work with dentistry, it's really opened up the doors to a whole lot of people calling for dental work. So knowing how to answer the phone is more important going out of network than in network, but the ads don't really have to change. If I were to say if there's anything that I would do better is I would market a little bit more. I would spend a little bit more on marketing if you're fee for service, and I would spend more on your website. And I would do a little bit more work on having a more modern website. And when I say modern, I don't mean having a video. I don't mean take off the stock photos, put in your personalization, put in colors, use complementary colors. I hate to say this, but 95% of websites aren't very good, even the brand new ones. I hate to say that, but when I talk colors and user experience, like I'm actually trained in human-centered design for user experience, which is a ridiculous course I took one time. I know. I was like, you should take it, Zeke. It's free, part of our company. And like, if you have, like, for instance, my colors are blue and orange, and so I use orange for my buttons. If your colors are, just give an example, blue and purple, neither of those are going to stand out. You need a complementary color, like a green, a red, a yellow, a different shade to make your button stand out, and that will increase your call volume. And if you're out of network, you want your call volume to be as high as possible. So that modern website with a really good user experience is what's going to help you out so that you can get in more new patients and obviously boost your overall production.
That's awesome. That's a really smart question too, Rebecca, because I know that's something that we're both helping people with a lot that I wouldn't have thought to ask. So thank you for asking that. And Zeke, I want to be respectful of your time, so I don't want to take this too long, but I do want to ask you one more question before we start to segue out and ask our last question. So for offices who may be operating on a tighter budget, especially right now with staff costs being so high and bringing in lots of temps and we're trying to keep our budgets slim, how can we still get marketing in those offices who are trying to control their spend and who are trying to keep their budget under control?
So this goes back to, you want the fastest return on your investment. And so when people are comparing a Google Ads budget, let's just give an example. You're going to spend $2,000 between, maybe it's the ad spend and management, or you're going to spend only $500 to $1,000 on SEO, or where you should spend it. If you are spending $1,000 on SEO and you're not seeing return on the investment because it's not tracked, you're not able to understand where it comes from. That's where a tighter budget, actually, even though you might be spending a little bit more for the ad side of it, you're going to get a better return. So spending, example, $2,000 to $3,000 on Google Ads versus $1,000 to $2,000 on SEO, it's very possible that you will get more new patients. Going back to, I saw a metric where it said the average he goes, the cost to acquire. So taking into account ad spend, management, calls that aren't new patients. At the time it comes down to, it could be anywhere from $100 to $175 to acquire a new patient. And that's using ads. Now with SEO, it's like, okay, are you growing the site? Are you actually adding value to it? Has it been, enough time for it to be? And maybe you have been working for over a year with an SEO agency. And if it's not tracked and you can't actually show that year over year, I'm getting, let's just say it is tracked, and let's just say it's the same. If you're spending $1,000 and you're getting 10 to 15 new patients on it, whereas if you would have spent $2,000 and gotten, twice as many leads from Google Ads, that's where I would spend it. Anytime you're on a tight budget, you want the fastest returns, because if you have a return on your investment right away, then, as I like to say, marketing doesn't cost you a dime. You should have to budget for it because it should have a return on it. And so if it doesn't have a return on it, then you're not marketing. You're just brand awareness. I mean, I guess that's a word for marketing, but it's like, you're not, that's where a performance driven marketing company is going to get you calls, new patients, things like that. A integrated marketing company or a social or brand awareness one, it may not get you. I mean, some do. I'm not saying they all don't, but if you're trying to have a tight budget, spend on Google Ads. And in my opinion, $50 a day is where I would kind of start, because in a small market, you may not spend the full $50 a day. And if you think about it, come on, it's $50 a day. If there's 8 hours, it's $6 every hour. Can you do enough work, to cover that? And it's like, people think about how tight budgets are, like, oh, I can't, because they might see the full thing. They're like, oh, that's $1,500 a month. Oh, with management, that's, a little over $2,000. And maybe it's higher. Maybe there's some agencies that are much higher with their cost. So they see that dollar amount, anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. They're like, that's a lot. I'm like, but all in, that's $100 a day with ads and management. And if you spent $3,000 in 30 days. And so my point is $100 per day in 8 hours is $1,250. It's not, yes, I know I did my math very fast for you guys. For $12.50 you're asking. You're literally asking for $12.50 to be taken from, each hour. And so that's where I would start, is a $50 a day budget. And it breaks down to $12.50 an hour that you're basically having to spend out of your production costs.
And girl math, anything under $15 is free. So basically, it's free.
There you go. No, math, let's go performance math. ROI wise, it doesn't cost you anything. If the marketing is getting you new patients, if you're spending $1,500 and you're getting, let's play numbers here. If you spend $1,500 and people say it's 100 or 175, let's go 150. That's 10 new patients. 10 new patients that are coming in. Just let's go minimum, just cleaning an exam. Give me some numbers. Throw out some ranges on there. You guys probably know it better than I do on it. I was told you could go anywhere from $300 to $500, depending on.
That's what I was. Yeah, right. Like in my area, right around $300.
Yeah, so at $300, depending on what they need exactly. But let's just say it's $300. That's $3,000. Okay, that's just the cleaning. Now, of those 10, how many of them had treatments? Well, we do know that a third of calls are typically emergency calls. So 3. That's at least $2,000. So you have $6,000 from that. You got $3,000. You're already at $9,000. You spent $1,500 to do $9,000. Then long term, come back. Maybe they don't come back. Maybe it's but it's like one of those where long term, you want to look at that as well. And that's just base. But what we typically see is if a dental practice is bringing in 25 new patients, they're doing another $50,000 reduction, because you've got all the high end treatment outweighing those $300. So 80% of volume comes from treatments, and it's only that 20% that's coming in from cleaning.
I think you make a really good point, Zeke, and I think you mentioned this earlier, is that it's your staff, right, that's answering the phones and getting those new patients in the door, and then they're the ones that are going to be closing that sale for the doctor, right? He diagnoses it, he sees it, he does it, and then I think some of that, then, of course, is closing the sale with the patient in the chair. You got him in, and then you're like, well, are they going to come back? Are they not? And some of that has to be your staff too. Yes. And, are they trained how to answer that phone, sell the practice? Are they positive? Are they happy? Do they sound like they love working there too? And that's what makes that patient, new or not, right, want to come back and continue to, come to that dental practice with the dentist that they work with. How do you have an impact in that way for that doctor? If he's going to spend the money and he's doing everything he needs to do, how do we change that impact on, I guess, maybe the culture of the office, right? Because they're the ones that also impact that marketing strategy too.
How do we impact that? That's exactly where coaches come in. Where if you see a need for it, a lot of dentists they're so good at what they do in the chair, but I had a talk with one guy and he was just like, I don't have anything to do with the front office because I can train hygienists, I can do my own thing, I can listen to podcasts, I can do all my stuff back in the office, but I can't really train the front office, and that's where people really need to hire someone like Rebecca to be able to do some type of dental coaching, where sometimes it's, from what your tone on the phone. Other times it's the way you word things. Sometimes it's the way you pause. Sometimes it's the way you present the treatment. Something's not broken, but it's just something that needs to be repaired, replaced. I don't know. I heard that one recently where don't play broken in front of it. Someone, it's like, how can you help them? And it's like, that's the same thing for me as a marketer too. I can't come across as you need marketing. I need to come across, how can I help your practice grow? How can I pay off your debts? How can I help you so that you don't have missing gaps? Because, front office staff, they don't have the debt that these dentists have. Mm-hmm. They don't realize it. And sometimes the doctors are so overwhelmed back in their chairs that they're just like, I don't know. I don't know if I need marketing. Or they're like, oh, it's $3,000. As I said before, some people, I didn't use this word, but they see it as a cost, but marketing isn't a cost. And so that's what I meant by it, is like they get sticker shocked at first, but then when you break down the numbers, it's like, oh, I spend $3,000 and I can do $20,000 in new patients and treatments. Like, oh, that makes sense. And many times people do see a return on investment from anywhere from 15 to 20x on that. It just really depends on coaching people through getting the booked calls. Oh, answering the phone calls, getting to a 90% answering rate instead of 75. They're going to call the next person. So all of that can be done with hiring a dental coach.
Thank you.
Shameless plug for Rebecca and I. Appreciate that.
We do always appreciate those plugs for us. So yes, we can always help offices with, and that's true, I think. And sometimes dentists don't always realize that sometimes it's not necessarily their marketing that they've invested in. Sometimes it's just there. And I'm sure, Brittany, you see this too when you go into practices. Sometimes it's just retraining on closing those calls with the new patients and just sell them, get them in, because you work for the best dentist ever. And, that's all that the new patients need to hear sometimes from the staff. So,
and that's really where you're maximizing your budget. So to close this out on it, to maximize your marketing budget, you have to have it all full circle. You can get the leads coming in, the phone calls are coming in. You could have some patients being booked, but we want to maximize the number of new patients booked and then maximize the amount of treatments that put more smiles on our community members without overselling. We're not selling, we're helping people and making sure that we are doing dentistry that's right for the community.
That's awesome. I love that this came full circle and it's all like, we're like peanut butter and jelly here. Like, you need the marketing and you need the team training. So if our audience is listening and they want to find, I'm going to let Rebecca ask the final question, but before she does, I want to ask if people who are listening want to find you, where is the best way for them to find you, to work with you, to learn more about what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. So our website, creativelyinnovative.com. We've got a whole page for dental on there, but you can book a free consultation and ask you a little bit of information about yourself, get your website, a little bit of information. And then after you submit that, it's going to allow you to book a call on my calendar, and that'll go directly with me. I will be the one speaking with them on the phone call. So book that, and then I'll shoot back an email with any questions I have before that phone call. And then we'll dive into what marketing is best for the revenue that they're currently at versus where they want to get to. And we'll decide where it should be based on how far booked out they are, where the holes are as well, because I'm not going to sell you on what you don't need. I'm going to sell you on what is going to be right for your city. I think that's very critical. In certain cities, it's a better plan. Certain people have different productions. So I'm going to explain exactly what they need, not what I need.
Excellent. Love that. Well, and if you listen to our podcast, you know we love to ask our guests at the end of our recording, what, Zeke, has been your defining moment or decoding moment in your career, your personal life that you can share with our listeners to give them some helpful hints?
So I actually have a background in engineering. I don't know if people actually know that. So I have a mechanical engineering degree with a marketing minor. And if you know anything about me, everything comes down to efficiency. We talked about maximizing budgets today. That is my wheelhouse. Everything has to do with efficiency. So when it comes to whether it's your dentistry or your marketing or even your personal life, going after something that's more efficient will obviously save you time. It can save you money. It can save you maybe even relationships too. But I always try to look at things on how to be the most efficient, no matter what it is. Even in my house, I'm gonna give you a really crazy example. I take down my Christmas stuff in my living room. I make sure that every time I walk down the stairs and walk back up, I am taking one thing in one direction and another thing in the opposite direction. I won't go empty-handed either way. And then I basically calculate how much time it takes me to do each one so I can go faster. It's ridiculous, but that is like, there's a reason why our Google Ads campaigns are set up. The average agency out there, I will be honest with you, it takes 2 or 3 weeks to launch. That is what I've heard is the going rate. We are approximately 48 hours because everything I've done has been calculated down to, they ask this on their intake, they do that, and then we customize it for what they need, and then we ask it. And there's a certain sequence where we do one thing first and we ask so that when we're waiting for an answer, we can do the rest of it. Everything's sequenced down to be able to do it in that time frame. Otherwise, you're waiting back and forth, back and forth. And then if we don't get the answer we need, we have shortcuts to be able to find out certain things. So be efficient with your life. That's what I have to say about decoding my own life.
Awesome. This has been such a great conversation, Zeke. I'm super glad that you were able to jump on, and thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to follow you and hear more about all the things that you're doing in the marketing space.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Zeke.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Dental Decoders podcast. We hope you took away a valuable piece of information. As always, don't forget to rate, share, and subscribe to help us build our community of dental decoders. We look forward to seeing you for next week's episode.